Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi al-Tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muli'at butunukum min al-haram. This was one of the final statements of the Holy Imam on the plains of Karbala, that your insides have been filled with haram. But this haram has been used in the absolute sense. Was it just a matter of filling oneself with haram meat? Was it a matter of drinking haram liquids? The answer is no. Because most of the enemy, most of those in the camp of the enemy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they wouldn't eat or consume haram meat. They wouldn't drink alcohol. Actually, they would stick to the letter of the law very well. They would even do Salatul Layl. Most of them were fasting. But Imam is giving a formula here. A formula which has to stay with us until the very end. He's saying, your insides have been filled with haram. So if it's not haram meat, haram food, haram drink, what is this haram referring to? It's referring to all those, but that can't be the end of the story. Because most of the enemies would withdraw from these form of harams. So there's something deeper here. In another tradition we read, لا تجعلوا بطونكم قبور الحيوانات. Don't assign your insides as the graves of animals. What does that mean? Well, yes, superficially, one meaning is that, yes, in Islam, we do have a green dimension. There is a vegetarian dimension, not wholly vegetarian, but it exists. Have meat little. Once every 2 days, once every 3 days. And if you want to have it every day, little though. Don't consume too much meat. That's one meaning. But there's another meaning here. There's another meaning with the first tradition. The esoteric meaning here, butun is referring to the nafs. Your inside is your nafs. Don't fill your nafs, your soul, with haram. Meaning, don't incorporate haram attributes within your soul. And in the second tradition, don't incorporate animalistic attributes. Graves of animals. Don't incorporate animalistic attributes within your soul. لا تجعلوا بطونكم قبور الحيوانات. So that your soul is contaminated with animalistic attributes. That of a wolf, tiger, lion, dog, pig. Be careful. One's inside, one's baatin is one's nafs. When you look at it from this angle, yes, the enemies of Imam Hussein, they may have done all the wajibat in relation to consuming the halals and withdrawing from the harams according to the Sharia, but their souls were contaminated with animalistic attributes. And therefore they were animals in reality. Imam said, your insides have been filled with haram. Not necessarily haram food, but haram attributes, that of animals. You were a human. Why are you drowned in animalistic attributes? That's haram for you, ethically speaking, spiritually speaking. Now there's one verse of the Holy Quran where this can be opened up significantly. It's in chapter 5, verse number 3. At the end of the verse, although the verse was revealed long time before the end of the 23 years of the Holy Messenger, but the verse Akmaltu al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, today I've perfected your religion, for some reason, which was revealed at the end of the 23 years, it was placed in chapter 5, verse 3, at the end of verse 3. Why was it placed there? Well, one reason they say is because this verse number 3, it's about food, and everyone knew about this verse about food because it would affect their daily practices. And so they put it there so that the enemy can't get rid of this part of the verse that easily. People would all recall it. And that's okay. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it's one theory. And the theory has some basis to it. But there's a deeper reason why the verse Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum has to be placed here. And let's go through the verse, how it starts. And then inshallah it will become evident why Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum has been fitted here. The verse reads, حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير. Forbidden for you is carrion, dead animals, carcasses which haven't been slaughtered Islamically, blood, and the meat of swine, pigs. Now, is that a test for us today? Are we suffering today because we can't consume the flesh of pigs? Alhamdulillah, everyone here, they would never even contemplate. Now, 1400 years ago, it was a problem. Many people would consume it. They would consume blood. They would consume animals not slaughtered in the Islamic way. But what about today, with me and you, in the West? Are we affected by this? Well, if you only take the superficial aspect to it, we say no, this part doesn't affect us too much. But should we feel complacent therefore? Is that the end of the verse? Nothing else? There's no esoteric utun, inner dimensions to it? Is blood the physical blood, period? The pig, the physical pig, period? The dead animal, the rotting animals, is that only the physical animal, period? Or are there inner depths too? And we see that the Urafa, based on the logic of the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, have opened this up. حرمت عليكم الميتة. Forbidden for you are dead animals. What does, in addition to the dead animal that the Sharia, the superficial aspect of the Sharia explains is haram, this same Sharia has inner dimensions in relation to what the dead animal represents. Ad-dunya jifatun. It's the worldly life. Imam Hussein said, Muli'at butunukum min al-haram. Be careful you don't fill your souls with the worldly life. You don't get drowned in the glitter of the worldly life. Here we see now, most people fail now. You want to be Hosseini, it's difficult. Here, all those enemies, they may have never consumed haram meat, but they were drowned in the worldly life. They were drowned in power. They wanted prestige. And they filled their souls with the worldly life. And therefore they fell spiritually. White damo, blood, what does that represent? It represents, according to the logic of traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, blood is shahwa. Now shahwa can be in relation to one's sexual appetite or in relation to one's food appetite, where one overdoes these two appetites and becomes animalistic. You're a human. Animals eat, animals do those actions, but you're a human. These have to be controlled. You can't overdo them, even if it's not haram from a superficial aspect. But if you overdo these traits, you become more animalistic. That's why in Islam it says eat slowly. Animals eat fast. Eat in small morsels. Animals eat in large morsels. Eat in congregation, it's mustahab. Animals eat alone. All the rulings we have in the Sharia about the etiquette of eating food, the underlying rationale is so that your animalistic tendencies are suppressed. Eat like a human. Don't fill your souls with animalistic attributes in whatever form of appetite. You're a human. وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ. What does the pig represent? In general, why is the flesh of pigs haram? Some people looked for medical reasons. No. Even if there was some truth to what they say, that's not the reason. They find a chemical, then years later they find the same chemical in cows. What are you going to do now? How are you going to just amend the mess that you've caused? You can't find the wisdoms of Islam in medicine. That's only a physical dimension of the wisdoms. The true wisdoms are spiritual. You eat the meat of pigs, you acquire pig attributes. That's the reason. Why is the dog haram to consume? You consume the meat of dogs, you become of dog attribute. Why are predators haram to consume? You consume the flesh of predators, you become a predator with predator attributes. And so on and so forth. Why is cattle okay, like cows and sheep? Because they don't have any vicious attributes. They're benign animals. But if you overdo it, even with cattle and sheep, you acquire cattle attributes. You become lazy, sloppy. Yes. And this can be proved rationally, very easy. Why don't you let your children be intimate and close and have an affinity with bad people, with vicious people, people of vice? Why don't you let your children be friends with them? Because those vicious attributes become conveyed to your children, even though there's no contact. Can you imagine eating the flesh of a pig, of a predator, of a tiger? It's going to have its effect on you. So Islam has a protocol here. It wants to enhance your human dimension. And for you not to be a predator, and so on and so forth. And that's the wisdom behind many of these rulings. Can you have pets in Islam? Yes. You can have a cat pet and many other animals you can have as pets. Some animals you can't purchase, such as the dog, the pig. But animals, having compassion to animals, even to the dog and to the pig, it's okay. Compassion is okay to animals because they're Allah's creatures. But building an affinity with animals, that's a bit reproached, at least according to the Urafa. Because when you acquire an affinity with animals, let's say with a cat, as a result, we show compassion, but affinity is different to compassion. Once you acquire an affinity with the cat, as a result you will acquire those cat attributes. Or with a dog, dog attributes. Once you have an affinity with them. Therefore here one has to be careful. In England, there was a statistic I once read that 8 million reptiles are kept as pets. Like snakes or these kind of things. If you have a pet snake and you acquire an affinity with it, you will acquire snake attributes. You'll be a reptile in society. These things have been carefully observed by the Urafa. They're not saying it from themselves. There's a vast literature on these points. However, this doesn't mean you shouldn't show compassion to animals, whatever the animal is. But if you have a pet, this has to be observed. Be careful about it. وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ, and that which has been dedicated with the name of other than Allah. That's also haram upon you. I'll explain more of that later because it links with something at the end of the verse. And then the verse gives 4 different classes of animals. وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ وَالْمُوقُوذَةُ وَالْمُتَرَدِّيَةُ وَالنَّتِيهَةُ. 4 classes of animals, all of them haram according to the Sharia. That animal which has been strangled to death, it's haram to consume. That animal which has been beaten to death, it's haram to consume. That animal that has been toppled to death, thrown from above downwards, from a, let's say, a cliff or whatever. And that animal that has been horned or gored to death. These are all haram according to the Sharia. But what do they represent esoterically? Because these are haram. How can we be a toppled or strangled or beaten haram animal? How does that fill the soul? Here they say the strangled animal and the beaten animal is when the traveller to Allah, the wayfarer, someone who's wayfaring towards Allah. So they've started out good. But this wayfarer along the journey, they strangle their nafs, they beat their nafs, their souls, they suppress their souls with legitimate Islamic disciplines and etiquettes. There's no problem there. But they do it out of riyā or sum'ah, when they want to be seen or heard by the people. They're not doing it for Allah's sake. It's done out of riyā. You see, when you have a strangled animal and an animal which is slaughtered Islamically, they look the same. They don't look different. They almost look exactly the same. The true arif, the true wayfarer to Allah, and the pseudo-sadiq, the false wayfarer and traveller to Allah, they look the same. But one of them is doing these actions out of riyā, and they have made their souls haram, whilst the other, the soul is pure. But on the outside, the two people look the same. Make sure the soul doesn't be filled with munkhaniqatu wal mawqudatu. The animal that's toppled to its death, what action can we do to be like that and therefore haram within? It's when you express superiority in knowledge or asceticism, zuhud. Here the scholars are very susceptible to this. Well, learning knowledge has to increase your humility. But when you see a scholar with arrogance, seeing themselves as superior to others, even in knowledge and in zuhud, that's the beginning of their downfall. They've toppled themselves down. These are not ideal statements that the Imams have made when they say you always, on seeing anyone, you have to say, "Huwa khayrun minni," they're better than me. And then the tradition continues. Even if they don't have a Islamic outer aspect, you have to say their inner side is better than me. How do I know? Sometimes we say that academically, no, that's of no use. Sometimes you say that wholeheartedly. You really believe in it. The knowledge that you've acquired has made you act like that. Yes, that's important. And being gored to death is when you assault another, you attack another, you argue with another. Why are you arguing? Why are you attacking? It's all for the ego, and you're filling yourselves with haram. وَمَا أَكَلَ السَّبُعُ إِلَّا مَا ذَكَّيْتُمْ. And that which predators consume, save that which you purified. Save that much that you could slaughter Islamically. Okay, that has a superficial aspect that the Sharia delineates. But who are the predators in society, especially capitalist societies, when they devour on people's property, wealth, and other things in society? Be careful you don't consume what is linked and associated with them. Save that which is pure. Maybe the basic necessities. Be careful. Don't overdo it. Otherwise you'll fall in what they are devouring. وَمَا ذُبِحَ عَلَى النُّصُبِ. And that which is sacrificed on the altars. The polytheists, they would sacrifice animals, for example, for their idols on stone altars. Today we don't have that problem, but esoterically, what is this representing? What is my idol? What is your idol that we sacrifice for? And we see in the language of the Quran, the idol is anything which makes Allah, anything which makes you treat Allah as a means to something, rather than treating Allah as an ends. Whatever makes you treat Allah as an ends to something, as a means to something, so you're using Allah as a ticket way. Whatever makes you use Allah as a means to something else, that thing is your idol. Because Allah has to be treated as an end, period. You do things for Allah's sake, period. Sometimes someone does a good deed for worldly incentives. Those worldly incentives are an idol. They're sacrificing themselves for worldly incentives. There's no Allah in the picture. Sometimes someone has good incentives, hereafter incentives, but they still are using Allah as a means. They do Salatul Layl, like Shimr, who did Salatul Layl every night. But they do Salatul Layl to go to heaven, to increase their sustenance. They don't do it for Allah's sake, period. They do it for the benefits of Salatul Layl. That's okay. It's not haram, it's good. Even if you do it for its benefits. But you have to grow, because you're still using Allah as a means to heaven. Rather than doing things for Allah alone, irrespective of heaven or hell. Doing it for Allah's sake. For example, sometimes you speak good to your wife, so she cooks something at night. You're using her as a means to cooking. But sometimes, irrespective of whether she cooks or not, you're doing it because of her. The second love is much more. The same applies with Allah. Sometimes you give charity for Allah's sake, period, finish. That's very noble. Sometimes you give charity for your burdens to be relieved. Someone has cancer, someone has an examination, someone has this, someone has that. That's also good, but you're using Allah as a means. That charity that you're giving, in the language of the Urafa, is an idol. Reading the Quran can be an idol. Reading Ziyarat Ashura can be an idol. Why are you doing it? Ceremonies of Ashura can be an idol. Why are you doing it? Why are you attending? What are you doing? For who? Then when one evaluates oneself, one sees that in reality one is drowned in idols. One is a true mushrik in the Irfani sense, not in the Sharia sense. No. Actually, one verse in the Holy Quran, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Most of those who have iman, have belief and are mu'min in relation to Allah, most of them are mushrik. This is explicit in the Quran, but not mushrik in the Sharia sense, in the Irfani sense, because they have iman. But still they're drowned in idols, because they keep using Allah as a means. Then you can evaluate yourself in daily activities. For example, you write a paper, an academic paper, or a book. Someone steals the book and publishes it in their name. Do you become disappointed? If you become disappointed, it's your natural right, but you're a mushrik. Why? Because if you had written this for Allah's sake alone, irrespective of whether someone stole it or not, you did it for Allah. Why should you be disappointed? You see? Or you invite someone to your house, they never invite you back. You become disappointed. Why? It means when you invited them, it wasn't for divine, Allah-full reasons. It was for Allah-less reasons. And that's why you became disappointed. If one closely scrutinizes one's life's activities on a day-to-day basis, we're drowned in this form of shirk. And one shouldn't panic, but one should make an effort to grow at least. So next year, one sees that one is less drowned in shirk. That's okay. You've grown at least. But to remain in a framework all your life where Allah is used as a means for something else, eventually, because of the haram which you're contaminating yourself with, it's going to make you fall spiritually. It may take years, but it will make you fall. But imagine you succeed. And in these few things that we mentioned, not only you accepted the superficial aspect of it, but the esoteric dimensions, you incorporated those successfully too. If you do that now, الْيَوْمَ يَئِسَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ دِينِكُمْ. Now today, your enemy, the kuffar, will be in despair in relation to your religion. They're scared now. They're scared of you. They're in despair. They know they can't predominate over you. Because not only have you accepted the superficial external aspect of the Sharia, but also the baatin of the Sharia. You're strong now. They're in despair. They know they can't do anything with you. They're very comfortable with those so-called Islamic states where only the zahir of Islam is being practiced and there's no baatin in those states. Actually, the enemy, the kuffar, they're very comfortable with those states. But when a state that has been founded by the likes of Imam Khomeini, who always said the roots of the revelation lie in its irfan, in its baatin, there, yes, people are scared of that. They're scared. Al-Yawma, today, if you've mastered all that, the Zahiri and the Batini dimensions, now you're a true human. They're in despair. فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ. Don't be scared of them. وَخْشَوْنْ. Be scared of me, Allah. الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. If you've mastered all that, today you've perfected your religion. See? Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Yes, it was the message of Ghadeer, very important message. Ashura, when the Imam is saying muli'at butunukum min al-haram, don't fill your souls with haram, these batini harams, because the zahiri harams, the enemies also withdrew from. Ashura becomes the baatin of Ghadeer. And that has to be preserved for Ghadeer to continue. Otherwise, confining with the zahir, your Ghadeer will be deficient. Confining with the zahir of Ghadeer, you won't be a true Husseini. And it's difficult. And that's why the majority were against Hussein, in the camp of Hussein alayhi salam, on the day of Ashura. It's difficult. Be rest assured, all of us would have been on the wrong camp. Look how weak we are. Look how pathetic we are. Some major figures, they couldn't differentiate. Haq, they had problems. Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. That's why it came after these verses. you succeed in that protocol of withdrawing from haram, be it the spiritual haram and the zahiri haram, your deen will be perfected. وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي. Today I've completed my favor over you. When Allah completes His favor over you, it's when you've acquired an inner tahara, an inner purity. We see this in other verses of the Quran about wudu, ghusl, tayammum. Then Allah says, I don't want any haraj for you in these laws of mine. I don't want to cause any haraj for you. لَكِنْ يُرِيدُ لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ. Allah wills to purify you. It's not a physical purifying, because with tayammum, actually you're making yourself less clean physically. It's an inner purity. He wants to cause that, to bring this tathir of the nafs. And after saying that, وَلَيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. And He'll complete His blessings over you after that inner purity has been acquired. Here too, if you withdraw from the haram and the spiritual haram, al-yawma atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. See? But it needs that inner purity. That's difficult. So, Ashura, this has to be improved. Every year after Ashura, you have to ask yourself, have I become purer? Or was it only rituals and ceremony? If it was only rituals and ceremony, well, the signs are not good for you. You're just confining with desire. But if you woke up in 1%, if you were a bit shaken within, you became a bit purer within, yes, at least you're growing. And that's important to acquire, inshallah. Wasallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi. Just a few words of Musiba.